Hello YouTube, today we're going to focus on weak points again, and the topic of the discussion is the traps. So the traps, many people will tell you that it's all a matter of insertions. You'll also hear people say that if you're natural, you can never build big traps. In my opinion, the first assessment is correct, the second isn't. It is true that traps respond extremely well to certain types of hormones, especially androgenous hormones, because there's a lot of receptors in the muscle group, so they blow up in size. And this is also the reason why a lot of people will tell you you can spot a fake natural because they have disproportionately big traps. But I also believe it is possible for natural lifters to build our traps enough that they become impressive. As far as the insertion goes, I agree a bit more, and it's funny because I'm currently working on a transformation video, a 10-year transformation video. So I'm digging in my files to find pictures of me when I started lifting, and I realized that even before I started lifting and even when I didn't work them, I already had good traps. I had a lot of size there. And I think the reason for me is because I have such small clavicles that the area of where the traps insert is so small that they just appear bigger. But they have grown over the years, and I'm currently really focusing on them. The reason why is because they are going to be very important for the type of physique I want to achieve. And I also believe that if you're someone who has a small frame like I have, you need to have the peripheral muscles as developed as possible. So that's going to be the traps, it's going to be the outer head of the shoulder, of the triceps, of the forearms, etc. All of that needs to be swole so that you look wider. So my approach for traps when I started lifting was just doing pulls from the floor. So I would just do deadlift, and you still have a lot of people who are advocates of that method. They'll tell you, you want bigger traps, just get a bigger deadlift. This method and technique is suitable to a certain point because there's going to be a point where your deadlift progression is going to stall and you're going to be limited by your posterior chain. And even though the posterior chain is a very strong group of muscles, it is not as strong as your traps. And the reason why is because the traps stabilize the shoulders, meaning that of course you're going to have the ability to pick up and hold something for longer and also with much more weight than you can pick it up from the floor. Why? Because it's a different range of motion. This is the reason why you have people who can do rack pulls above the knee with 1,000 pounds and they can barely do a 500-pound deadlift. It's because it's much easier. I will make a video about the above the knee rack pulls, but that's for a different topic. I'm not going to discuss it here. One thing that I must say is that my approach for traps now, I learned a lot from Alex from Alpha Destiny. I'm copying a lot of his technique, and I think they work. So I used to only do deadlift, but then eventually my deadlift stalled and my trap growth as well. And I was stuck with the same size of traps for years. And so I started to throw in some partial range of motions. I also started doing shrugs. So the way I'm doing things for my traps is I have my heavy compound movements that are not primarily supposed to target the trap, but are going to bring some volume in and are going to help with growth. So that's your deadlift, snatch grip deadlift, all of my overhead press, pin press, all of that is going to work the traps, but it's not trap isolation. When it comes to trap isolation movements, I have my heavy stuff. I have snatch grip shrugs where I go up to 400 pounds, and I really focus personally when I isolate the traps on the stretch. I let the weight stretch the traps, and if I can't get a full range of motion shrug, I don't worry about that because I truly believe that what matters is the stretch. So I do my snatch grip shrugs. I will do some variation of a Yates row focused on the traps, etc., etc. That's where I'm going to really throw a lot of heavy weight at the traps. And for the volume and the more strict stuff, I've started implementing a technique that is not time consuming, that is very effective for trap growth, but that is probably the worst superset strategy you can implement in terms of pain and in terms of sheer exhaustion, because I've been doing it for 3 weeks. I really dislike it, but I'm seeing the results, so I'm going to continue doing it. And this is nothing crazy, it's nothing complicated, it's actually super simple. It's a rule you have to follow. Every time you do a set of pull from the floor or any type of pulls, actually, you have to end the sets with shrugs. If you follow that rule, your traps are going to grow. Which means that if you do a deadlift session, you're going to have to finish every set of deadlift from your 135 to your 405 with shrugs. And there's going to be a point, of course, where you won't be able to shrug it anymore. At that point, what you do is, at the end of the set, you just let the weight stretch the traps. You just hold it and let it stretch. And when you can't do anymore, you let go. This adds a ton of volume on the traps. And when you just get started, you're barely going to be able to do it. Especially if you run a body part split, because for me, I do pulls from the floor every 2 days, which means I have to do that strategy every 2 days. And it made my traps insanely sore. But I'm seeing the benefits already in size. So this is something I'm going to implement as well on top of my heavy shrugs and heavy deadlifts to hypertrophy my traps. And that progress is going to be documented. So once I reach a certain size for my traps, I'm going to show it off. I'm going to put it in the Road to a Bigger Back playlist, and it's going to serve as a testimony. I'm also going to make a video about weighted stretch, because I believe that for a lot of muscle groups, not all of them, but for a lot of muscle groups, it's really an insanely efficient method with a lot of untapped potential. I don't think many people have really explored the magic of weighted stretch, because it's not really magic, it's just a muscle that is stretched by weight is going to grow. But of course, certain muscles are not resilient enough to take that. And that's the reason why for the traps, I'm able to implement that type of strategy, because traps are probably one of the most resilient muscle group in your body. You're not going to tear a trap. I have never heard of anyone tearing a trap. So that's what I recommend for you too, if you have lagging traps. Your pulls from the floor, your clean shrugs, that's not enough. You need more than that. You need high pulls, you need to do rack pulls, you need to do shrugs with a lot of weight where you cheat, you let the weight stretch. You don't need to always be able to go full range of motion with the shrugs, it's not necessary. But you can also do the strategy I told you to do and superset your pulls with clean shrugs. And man, you're going to feel it, I guarantee you. So that's it for the video. This is me progressing towards my Berserker physique that I want to achieve. Expect more video on weak points. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.